Hey.
Hello, hey. Good morning.
All right, well, welcome. It is so nice to see your face virtually again, although hopefully in person soon. But thank you to everyone for joining. Let's start off with some quick intros. So I'm Talia, a partner at Bessemer. Bessemer, for those who aren't familiar, is a global venture capital and growth firm investing in the best founders and teams across consumer, B2B, healthcare, and frontier technology. We've been fortunate to work with companies like Shippo, as well as companies like StubHub, Discord, Shopify, HashiCorp, Twilio, and a whole bunch of others that hopefully you've heard of or will hear of in the coming years. I've personally been at the firm for 8 years and lead many of our marketplace investments. And I've been really fortunate to be a partner to Shippo since 2017, when Bessemer initially invested in the company and connected with Laura. But let me turn it over to Laura, who I'm really excited for you all to meet. She's really the star of the show, and let her do a quick introduction on herself. But as she does that, I figured we'd throw a curveball her way and also throw in a question to get to at the end, which is, as a company involved with shipping, what is the weirdest thing that Shippo has shipped?
Thanks for having us here today. I'm super excited to be here. As Talia mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Shippo. And what we do at Shippo is we power shipping for e-commerce companies. What that means is that our customers, they're e-commerce businesses, and they all have to ship. So we connect them to a network of different shipping providers. We make sure that they have access to really good shipping rates. We give them access to every tool they need along the journey of their packages, from pre-purchase to post-purchase. And we make sure that they can ship like retail giants. So we do that for both merchants and also for platforms and marketplaces that need an API to power shipping tools for their own merchants. As Talia mentioned, we have worked with Bessemer for a while now. They came in at our Series B. And yeah, I think for today, the framing of this conversation is mostly, we've been building a logistics startup for like 7 years now. There are a bunch of really good learnings along that journey. And most recently, we finally reached unicorn status, having raised our most recent round again from Bessemer at $1 billion+ valuation. So we're super excited to talk about learnings from that journey. Very excited to talk about logistics trends and e-commerce trends. And then also about our most recent European expansion. And from Talia's curveball question about the weirdest things we've shipped, I think it's really fascinating because if everyone here in this audience, if you look around, like everything in front of you has been shipped multiple times in order to be where it is right now. It's been shipped by ocean freight, maybe air freight. It's been shipped. It's been on a truck. It's been on a last mile delivery provider. It's been carried to your doorstep. So there's a lot of shipping happening. And while shipping is like really intangible and something that's happening in the background, I love looking at just the different items that our merchants are shipping and getting a good overview of everything that's going on. And it's interesting, like in the US, like a fun fact that I learned is that it's perfectly legal to ship baby alligators with the USPS. There's a restriction that the alligator cannot be more than 19 inches, and everything under that, it's perfectly fine. I've always wondered, like, what if the alligator is growing during its shipment? What will happen then? But who knows? So that works really well, shipping alligators, and we've done that. And then I see actually same still in that reptile area. There is one store that's shipping a whole lot of just reptile supplies, including grasshoppers and worms. So that's one of like I guess the weirdest things that we've shipped so far. But that store is growing really nicely. The reptiles have a ton of appetite, it seems.
Hungry hippos. That is just crazy. I don't even know where one would procure a baby alligator to ship said alligator. But if anyone knows, let me know, because I'd love to send one out. Buyer beware. But that's a great overview. Well, thank you, Laura. Before we jump into the kind of growth and development of Shippo, because this is the marketplace conference, and on the surface, if you look at Shippo, it may not always seem like a marketplace to many folks. But yet, if you go a layer deeper and you look at the core market dynamics at play, one, you're connecting supply and demand, so the shippers and the carriers. And there are these like really interesting real network effects at play and compounding benefits to scale that like we call flywheels. And I think a lot of marketplaces are known for. And you also had to kind of solve some of this chicken and the egg problem. Flywheel benefits continue to compound as Shippo's grown. I wonder if you might just explain to the audience a little bit more about how that works and what those dynamics are for Shippo specifically, and then we can jump into the growth story.
Perfect. And before I answer that question, actually, I wanted to flag in the introduction as well that this is meant to be as interactive as possible. We want to ask the questions that you want answered. So if you have any questions, we were told that if you pop them into the chat function, they will also reach us. And we'll be taking those questions as we go or at the very end, either works for us. But please, if questions come up, please feel free to ask. And then another like fun fact that I should have mentioned in the introduction is that I'm told that this conference is geared towards European founders, and my co-founder and I were actually both Germans. We happen to have started a business in the US, but are like both European founders ourselves. So happy to like answer any questions about being a European founder in the US as well. And now actually getting to Talia's question about the marketplace dynamics in our business. It's interesting because, as you said, like it's hard to, at the surface, it does not seem like a marketplace business, but there is a classic chicken and egg problem involved here. We have the shipping providers on the one hand that are doing the actual shipping. So Shippo is a pure technology company. We built an API layer on top of existing shipping providers. We're not doing the shipping ourselves. And from that angle, like we have to line up the suppliers. We have to line up the shipping providers who are doing the actual shipping. And then we also have to get our demand from our customers, the merchants. And the flywheel that's in our business is that the more packages we ship, the more leverage we have with the shipping providers. We become more interesting to the shipping providers. As you can imagine, a shipping provider does not really want to partner with a platform that has 0 customers or 0 shipping volume. But as soon as we aggregate a few merchants and their volumes, our shipping providers, the partners, they have more to gain. They're more likely to partner with us. It's becoming more interesting for them. And then we can also partner with more shipping providers, get access to better shipping rates, get access to better technology solutions and products from them. So that's the classic chicken and egg problem. And as we were getting started, or at the very beginning of building this company, I think that was probably the hardest problem to solve, because without any customers using us, it was really like knocking on the door of the shipping providers was just useless. Like they were not interested in having conversations with someone who has no volume to bring to the table. And then on the other hand, like talking to our customers, they're really not interested in using a shipping solution that didn't have any partnerships with shipping providers. So getting that right was the most difficult thing early on.
And so, like, what did you do? How did you solve that? No carriers, no shippers, no one wants to use you. What does one do?
We've always wanted, and we are now, a multi-carrier solution, meaning that we have a ton of different shipping providers on the platform. At the very beginning, we decided, okay, let's solve that problem one carrier at a time. We know our vision is to be a multi-carrier solution, but on day one, it's just really hard to try negotiating with a bunch of different shipping providers. Let's prove this out with a single shipping provider first, and then we can start knocking on other shipping providers' doors. So early on, the first shipping provider we had these kinds of discussions with was the USPS in the US. And that was, I mean, it was still a complicated process. It took a while, but from there, we were able to just find, they've had similar partnerships with other platforms before. So it was a known model to them. So we tried to find the partner that was most likely to say yes. And given that the USPS has had similar partnerships before, we were able to pitch them on something where they felt fairly comfortable. This is something they know, this is something they've done before. And we managed to establish that partnership, build up volume. Again, like at the beginning, we're very, very USPS centric. And then over time, we started with that early success. success going to other shipping providers. And then we had data points to show. Then that chicken and egg problem was actually much easier to tackle because we had volume on another shipping provider that we're able to show the other guys, and it started becoming interesting to them. And I think just for how we're doing this now, like we're doing European, we're doing our European expansion right now, and as we're going into Europe, we've found another interesting way to solve that chicken and egg problem, so that we're not starting from scratch again in the UK or in Germany or in France. And we've decided to do that by partnering with other platforms and marketplaces that already have a customer base in Europe. So that's been our European expansion strategy, powering those platforms and marketplaces, and then being able to say to the shipping providers that we basically have committed volume or a committed customer base from the partnerships that we've signed.
And Laura, just I've lost track, but how many countries and across how many regions does Shippo even operate today?
Yeah, so at the beginning, so it's been a continuous expansion. I mean, at the beginning, we were only in the US and only USPS. Then our next area of expansion was, okay, now we want more shipping providers in the US. And then from there, we started expanding into Canada, into Germany, France, Australia, the UK. And right now, we are about either already live or about to go live in Spain, Italy, and a few other Western European countries. So last quarter and this quarter has been a pretty intense just European expansion push.
It's really awesome. You know, as an investor, we spend a lot of our time meeting with companies that also have ambitions of global world domination, and much like Shippo. And as we look at companies and startups in Europe, one of the questions that we're often always asking is, well, Europe is not a country, right? There's like many different regions, and expansion is you know, each one in and of itself can require its own playbook, sometimes its own local team, different languages, different challenges. How have you kind of tactically gone about this? I know Shippo is really has kind of moved at the speed of light in Europe over the past 18 months, but maybe how did you think about staging that? And how do you think about that today, given the fragmentation?
So first, I'll explain what it takes for us to expand into Europe or into a new country. So before we can go live, let's say in Germany or in the UK, we have to integrate local shipping providers. And local shipping providers, there are typically a handful of them. We have to do a technical integration, and then we have to enter into a partnership with the shipping provider as well, where they're able to give us just economies of scale and allow our customers to use their services. And through that, so that's the first step, and that infrastructure needs to be ready before we can serve a customer in Germany or in the UK. And then so what we've done right now is that instead of going live in that country with our own customer acquisition model on day one, we go live with a handful of platform partners. So platforms that already have a customer base in that country, and they're building a shipping tool for their customer base using our API. And then they're in charge. Like, it is their shipping tool. They're building it natively using our API. They're in charge, or we're both in charge for joint promotion to their customer base. And then once we have that, once we have a bunch of learnings through those partnerships, we're able to launch in those countries ourselves. And so far, we haven't done that yet. Like, we haven't done any local customer acquisition by ourselves in the UK or anywhere in Europe. The way we're planning to go about that is to hire a few very entrepreneurial people in like one person per country. So we're looking to hire a German country lead, a French country lead, and UK country lead, ideally someone who's an ex-consultant or a former founder, someone who is able to both do like product related work in the sense of like getting feedback from the market around what it takes and doing that sort of research, but also doing a little bit of selling early on, and is able to like work with a very minimal amount of resources on day one. So that's our plan there. And then from there,
if there's anyone in the audience that has ideas for who these people might be that are kind of budding and rising entrepreneurs themselves that are interested in Shippo, either as partners, as leaders, as country heads, and kind of see the same potential that we do, where should they go? Who should they email?
Yeah, so for both potential like people who are interested in partnering or people who are interested in figuring out countries for us, ideally, you can just email me. I'm laura@goshippo.com.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then, well, you've been asking me a few questions. I want to turn it around as well. And I think one of the interesting parts I think supply chain this year and also last year has been top of mind for people. And it's kind of the first time that mainstream media is talking about the supply chain. And you've been investing, you've invested in Shippo like a while ago. What made you want to look at supply chain technology companies back then? And like, what other trends have you been seeing in supply chain in the last few years?
It's a great question. It was very simple for us with Shippo. One, you and Simon were incredible founders, and everything starts with the people. Second, we think a lot about, we've been investing for a long time in the commerce ecosystem. We were early investors in Shopify and have had enormous conviction in the growth of the broader independent e-commerce company and companies and ecosystem and market, absent the growth of Amazon and others that were kind of taking up a lot of the conversation at the time in the room. And as we surveyed the landscape, it became clear to us that one, it's easy to start a store if you have Shopify. It might be easy to pay for things with a Stripe or a similar service. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you can't actually get the products to the end customer. And so there's this critical missing piece that links the online world and the offline world. And a lot of the founders that we talk to, they're sort of squarely in one. They're like in bits or atoms. But at the connection of the two and at the intersection of the two is really powerful. And so we were actually specifically looking for a company that could help automate and make that world a lot easier, in part because even though supply chain may not have been top of mind, Amazon was top of mind for everyone. And everyone knows 2-day shipping. Everyone expects 2-day shipping. And it has had an enormous impact on customer conversion and customer expectations. And so the thing that has been most exciting to us is the potential for Shippo and what Shippo's done to make it much easier for every independent retailer and e-commerce merchant to deliver a delightful shipping experience. Given the changing expectations. And
then assuming that there are a few supply chain founders in the audience, like what kinds of supply chain technologies are you looking at right now? Like where else do you see opportunities?
Great question. So we continue to see really interesting opportunity broadly in the e-commerce ecosystem, but I think what we've been particularly interested in as of late is companies that can help in two ways. One, in specific parts of the in specific verticals in specific regions. So whether that's in specifically in like companies building for long haul, building for short haul, or building for specific cross-border lanes, that's one area. And second, the rise of the fast fashion cross-border e-commerce ecosystem and the rise of drop shipping, that has, I think, really changed the game for a lot of merchants as well, some of which don't even need to hold inventory themselves. They don't even need to purchase inventory up front. But that has a totally different way of actually going from, manufacturer to the end customer and getting the package into your hands. And we've been spending a lot of time thinking about just all the various stakeholders and players along that thread.
And then do you also invest in European companies? What should European founders do?
We do. And in fact, I'm really proud. We've been investing in Europe for a long, long time, but we've sort of been managing it by staying up late and going on flights and vice versa. But we now officially opened our London office, which my partner, Alex Ferrara, has moved and leads up with our colleague, Drew. And we are actively making investments, and you can feel free to email me, Talia at bvp.com, and Alex as well, Alex at bvp.com, and we can help direct you to the right folks internally, or would be really happy to just meet you ourselves.
He's a lucky guy that he got to move to London.
Yes, well, this is my fear. So I was saying, Laura, maybe tell us now, where in the world are you?
I'm in Ireland right now. We just hired a site lead in Ireland. So in case if there are any Irish entrepreneurs on the call or on the presentation right now, like we will have an office in Dublin very soon. And we're also actively hiring both engineering and product people in Dublin. I saw that there's a question coming in just a few minutes ago. It says, is there a risk to the partnerships with your existing, is there a risk to the relationships with your existing platform partners when you make the shift to direct acquisition of customers? Could you be competing for customers? That's a really good question. So the way we've been looking at this is like, there's always, so we want to meet our customers wherever they are. And our customers, they could be on a platform. If they're on a platform, then ideally we want to meet them there and make sure that it's as easy as possible for them to ship. And there are a good amount of, especially SMB customers, who prefer to just have all of their tools in a single platform. They don't want to go and like find other tools. It's complicated. They have to make decisions, and they have to figure out how to make it work all together. So ideally, they can just use the tools provided by that platform. So that's one audience. Then there's a different kind of audience where shipping is actually more complicated. And it is not something where they can just use a tool provided by the platform, even if we provide that tool. And an example would be, there are a whole lot of they're like a great food boxes. Food boxes is a great example where shipping is actually, it's pretty complicated. You have to make sure it arrives on time. And it is a more like specialized operation. So for those kinds of customers where the shipping is more custom and complicated and complex, they'll always want their own like direct integration to a shipping API, and they want to figure out the details by themselves. So it's a different kind of audience that we acquire through a platform partner versus that we're able to acquire directly. And typically there's not a ton of overlap, because when it becomes too complex, these like, too complex for them to ship, these merchants have to look for tools by themselves anyway.
And Laura, it's really interesting to have these two sides to your business, the platform side and the direct to consumer or merchant side. Can you just describe for folks that may also have kind of two end customers or areas of their business, how do you structure that internally?
Yeah.
Is it the same team and different teams? Like, how similar or different are the products?
Yeah. So this has been a fairly recent transition. So I guess it's one of our learnings from the last year. We've always like had platform partners and also merchant customers. And I think there's always been just a little bit of thrash internally of people working on the platform partnerships versus people working directly with merchants. And since the team has been growing quite a lot, so we grew to 300 people in the last 12 months. We doubled the team, and we decided, let's make sure that everyone has pretty clear responsibilities and we're not pulling the same people back and forth on two different kinds of products and customer needs. So the good news is that like the reason why this works well is because there's a ton of overlap in terms of what platform partners need and what merchants need. Like platforms are looking for API endpoints to build features and functionalities that we're providing directly to the merchants. And we're building, like the way our Shippo is built, it's API first. So we're consuming our own APIs. We're using our own APIs to build the functionalities for merchants. And then that's also helpful for our platform partners to see how they could be using our APIs to build exactly the same functionalities. So there is a ton of good synergy there. However, there are also a bunch of functionalities that are platform specific that a merchant wouldn't need. Like there is like, for example, a parent-child like account set up, in the sense that there's the platform has a parent account, and then all of the merchants using that platform have their sub accounts. So there are a few of these functionalities that are very platform specific, and we're just launching our platform API very soon as well. So that's how it's like that's generally how we've split it. And starting from 2022, we'll have a separated P&L for these two businesses and make sure that we track them just separately and have clear responsibilities and owners assigned to the two business lines.
Awesome. Well, before we open it up again, just to questions, and in the meantime, feel free to add anything to the chat. We'd love to hear from you. I want to get your feedback and even just interpretation of the supply chain issues. You said it yourself, like supply chain is all over the news. Everyone's thinking, am I going to get my Christmas presents or not this year? Yeah. At least that's what the headlines make it I still seem to be getting my packages, so I haven't yet found it. But maybe can you share with us just a little bit more about zooming out? What are these? What's causing these massive delays? Is it different in Europe than in the US? And what is the impact that you're seeing or expect to see?
Yeah, so when people talk about supply chain issues, they tend to lump everything together. And in fact, like there are lots of different steps in the supply chain. And unfortunately, all of the different steps have some kind of issues right now. So I will like grossly simplify this, given that we have only a few minutes left. But on the one hand, there is an inventory issue, like inventory coming from Asia or from other parts of the world. Because of COVID, like there's been just disruptions in the factories, and inventory is not being produced at the rate that it's normally being produced. So that's one issue. Then we have like an ocean freight issue. And I think we've all seen the pictures of just like ocean freight stuck at the port and like ships not being able to come in. And then once the containers come in, we also unfortunately have a trucking issue. There are not enough truckers right now, not enough people driving trucks. And that's just like, when containers get unloaded, there are not enough people to take those containers and bring them to the warehouses or where they need to go next. And also not enough people to bring the empty containers back. That's like, I think, partially created by just, I think, disruptions in the sense that people stopped working in those fields as COVID started shutting some of these like industries down, or different rules and regulations started coming into those industries. And then the next parts here, same applies to warehouses, not enough warehouse workers. So when inventory actually arrives at the warehouses, not enough people to like unpack, and not enough people to figure out how to send it out next. And then, okay, the last challenge is the last mile delivery challenge, where Shippo is actually the most well-versed in. And on the last mile side, it is existing shipping providers are really at capacity with the surge in e-commerce that has happened over the pandemic, more people buying on the internet. So existing shipping providers, they only have so many trucks, they only have so many drivers, and they can't keep up delivering all of the packages that people are ordering on the internet. But a piece of good news is, at least in the last mile delivery segment, we're seeing a ton of innovation. We're seeing a lot of new shipping providers emerging that didn't exist before. So entrepreneurs are taking the opportunity to build like the FedExes or the USPSs of the future. And that is really cool to see. So for some inspiration, like there's a company called Veho in the US, there's another one called Swift based out of Canada. There is actually a different kind of shipping company in Europe called Seven Senders. That's also really inspiring to see. So yeah, a bunch of interesting options are emerging to tackle that problem because there are too many packages being shipped. Oh, but I do think that I think, and I'm not saying that in a self-serving way, I think you can still buy your Christmas presents on the internet and it'll get there in time. It's only the 17th of November. And yeah, and I think it's good to help independent businesses. They're the ones struggling the most with the supply chain challenges.
Absolutely. So in essence, we're screwed, but there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are coming and solving these issues. So in the future is very bright. And by the way,
for entrepreneurs listening, I think the supply chain industry, like there's a ton of, there's so much you can work on. I think it's an underserved industry, and from a technology perspective, yeah, we run into challenges like a lot. And I think right before this, there was someone talking about, what was it? I think it was like duties and taxes for international shipping as well. That's another like great area to work on. The internet is making the world a smaller place, and more international shipping will happen. I think warehouse robots are another one where I haven't really dug into it just yet, but our customers are talking about it. So yeah. And let's see.
One more question. Yeah, we have one quick question. We have 1 minute left, so we'll do a fire round. Thanks for the question, which was, we've been seeing a whole bunch of different models related to quick delivery models, 15 to 20 minute delivery, dark stores, local delivery. How is that going to change the landscape?
Yeah, so I think it changes the landscape in the sense that there are more shipping providers. All of these like new shipping models are done by new shipping providers. They're not being done by the traditional shipping providers. And our customers, they want that innovation. They want to use the new shipping options. They want to be able to compete with Amazon Prime and get their items there within a day, or in the future within minutes. And what we're seeing then is that our customers, they start using more shipping providers at the same time. They can't just, like, you can't use like one of those new shipping providers to reach your entire customer base that only works for local deliveries. And then you need another carrier for the region that you're in, and another shipping provider for the country that you're in, and then maybe another shipping provider for international shipments. So we're just seeing our customers adopt more shipping options, and they want new options, but they can't rely on new options entirely.
Awesome. Well, I think we are almost up at time. So thank you so much for all the questions. I know there were a few others that we didn't quite get to, but please feel free to email me and Laura directly. My email is talia@bbp.com. Laura, yours?
Laura@goshippo.com.
Laura@goshippo.com. You know, Laura has the Shippo domain now, shippo.com, but for some reason we're still using goshippo.com. I don't get it.
It's not a customer value creating task.
Love the answer. So Laura@goshippo.com, Talia@bbp.com. Thank you all so much for joining us. This was really fun.
Thank you. Bye.